Is Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
I'm the only lawyer ever to obtain a court ruling that a president of the United States committed a crime.
For truth, for competition.
As a young lawyer, I helped break up AT&T. That's why you have all your cell phones today.
For sovereignty, for the Republic.
I'm the guy who at Judicial Watch, which I founded, uncovered the Chinagate scandal. Millions of dollars going to the Clinton campaign, corrupting our political system.
For the privacy of citizens.
And I'm the only guy to have enjoined the National Security Agency from mass surveillance on hundreds of millions of Americans.
Tearing it up.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
Bringing it back.
We're going to take this country apart and put it back together again in the way envisioned by our founding fathers.
It's not just talk.
We're not just regurgitating news stories. Larry Klayman, special prosecutor, is making the news.
And now, here's Larry.
Welcome to this week's edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. More hard-hitting stuff. Today I'm in the capital of corruption, Washington, D.C., where I spent many years and still spend a lot of time, I'll tell you. But I want to thank everybody for their support in the last year. Thank you for your prayers, because we are your people's Justice Department at Freedom Watch. And, of course, with regard to Cliven Bundy, who I'm representing in his private capacity, we continue to press on for justice. But I want to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, and a Happy New Year. But the New Year is not secure. The New Year is very fragile. While the stock market has gone up, while we have a new tax bill, thank God, this will generate more growth in the economy. While there are some good things on the horizon, we have real threats from North Korea. We have threats from Iran. We have internal threats with terrorists here, terrorist cells, ISIS cells, and we have threats from the left. And they're perhaps the biggest threat because they're trying to destroy this country. They're doing it currently through the Democratic Party. They're doing it currently through the George Soroses of the world. The Eric Holders, former Attorney General, says he wants mass demonstrations if Trump fires Mueller. I mean, Trump isn't even going to fire Mueller. He should fire Mueller. The person he should fire is Attorney General Jeff Sessions. I think that will solve a lot of the problems, and we'll talk about that. But I'll tell you something. They are the most evil bunch. When you watch Senator Chuck Schumer, the Senate Minority Leader, just lie from his teeth. He kind of looks like Officer Schnauzer on Car 54. When I was a kid, there was a TV series to that respect. The level of dishonesty of the left is unbelievable, and we continue to fight against it. And some Republicans are starting to stand up to it, at least in terms of the tax bill, but most are still cowering from it. And one of those people, of course, is Attorney General Jeff Sessions. And let me tell you what's been going on in the Bundy case, because it's unbelievable. The case started about a month and a half ago, and during the course of the testimony, we uncovered a lot of falsities that were provided by the prosecution. These holdovers in the Trump Justice Department from Obama, the Obama deep state, the acting U.S. Attorney, Stephen Myre, M-A-H-R-E, check him out on the Internet, and another individual by the name of Dan Sheese, and a prosecutor, I don't really know, I can't never remember her name, but it's a Muslim name. Her name's Ahmad, something to that effect. And these people have been violating the constitutional rights of the Bundys and the other defendants. We now found out for a very long time that they covered up a massive scandal. This was leaked through a Washington state legislator who got a hold of a memorandum written by a Bureau of Land Management investigator, a individual who was revealing that there was a kill list for Cliven Bundy, his family, and the other defendants, that there were targets up on the wall of Bureau of Land Management with X's on Cliven, that they were disparaging the Mormon faith, that they hid evidence that was exculpatory, meaning that it could be used in the defense. And this is on top of surveillance cameras that were out there that could show that Cliven was not threatening federal agents, nor were his family members, that were hidden, that we found out in the early stages of the trial. This is breaking things wide open in this case. And the judge on the case is deciding what to do. Of course, we know that she's an Obama appointee. She was recommended by Harry Reid. The Las Vegas Review-Journal, which is a mainstream publication with the prior two trials that occurred before Cliven and his sons went on trial, called her a friend of the prosecution, outlined how she had violated a number of constitutional rights of defendants in the various cases. And about 3 months ago, with all of this prosecutorial misconduct, even before this whistleblower came forward, and he only came forward in the last week, and you can check it all out at clivenbundydefensefund.org. Please contribute to that defense fund because we're spending a lot of time out there in Las Vegas, and we need your support. And I'm going to explain to you why this case is so important yet again. But I filed a complaint with the Office of Professional Responsibility of the Justice Department, with the Inspector General of the Justice Department to investigate these ethics violations. I had previously communicated with Attorney General Jeff Sessions, who said he would look into these things. But then he was nowhere to be found and made a statement when he was visiting the U.S. Attorney's Office in Las Vegas a few months ago that he's not taking sides. Well, he's putting his head in the sand because he's under investigation by Robert Mueller. He's been accused of being a racist by the Democrats. He has run like a little boy away from his responsibilities as the Attorney General. So I had to take action on my own. And when I didn't hear anything back from the Office of Professional Responsibility and Inspector General, I filed a complaint in federal court here in Washington, and that's why I was here this week. It was assigned to an Obama appointee, Judge Rudolph Contreras. I should call him Contreras, because I asked him to issue an order to force the Justice Department to do an investigation, because the judge in Las Vegas is so partisan, she's unlikely to take any disciplinary action against these prosecutors. Basically, these prosecutors have her in her hip pocket. And the judge wouldn't grant that order yesterday. I urged him then to do what he needed to do, because any lawyer which sees a crime being committed under our oath of being a lawyer, making it simple, and a judge, and I said to him, Your Honor, you're a judge. You're even in a superior position to me as a lawyer. You have a responsibility to contact the Justice Department and tell them to do their job, because crimes are being committed by these prosecutors. It's called obstruction of justice. Crimes were committed by the Bureau of Land Management. Crimes were committed by the FBI that was working with the Bureau of Land Management. They had to admit recently that there were snipers surrounding the Bundys. That's why people came. That's why they exercised their Second Amendment rights. The peaceful protesters could have all been killed along with the Bundys. And we know that the Bundys' family was beaten up. Margaret, Cliven's sister, was thrown viciously to the ground. His 2 sons were tased. Davy's face was ground in the pavement, and then they bragged about it. They were called retards, the Bundys, by these federal agents. These were goons. These were mercenaries that were sent. Cattle were killed on the Bundy ranch. It's unbelievable. After this thing was over, a lot of liquor bottles were found around. They were celebrating this tyranny against the Bundy family. And eventually the government was forced to leave. I use the term government loosely because this is not the government that our founding fathers envisioned. So I asked Contreras to take action. And he just stood there and looked at me like a deer in the headlights, like a Buddha or something like that. And I was trying to be very diplomatic with him, and I hope that he will take action. But he's an Obama appointee, and I think he was afraid of saying anything because this prosecution began under Obama. And why did it begin? Because after Cliven was beaten up and after his family was terrorized and they threatened their lives to get off the land so it could be sold out from under them by Harry Reid's son, Rory, and Harry himself, who was probably going to get kickbacks to, as reported, Chinese environmental interests that wanted to take over the land. This is right out of some Snidely Whiplash cartoon, but in fact it's real life. After that all happened, Cliven said, I've been treated like the Negro in the Old South because the way the federal government has treated them was wrong, and they've treated me wrong. And Obama took offense to that and threatened Cliven at a White House Correspondents' Dinner, never start your sentence using the word Negro. Well, you know what? That's what Martin Luther King referred to his people as. He didn't mean any harm, Cliven, by that. And I can tell you, Cliven's been in prison for 2 years. The African Americans in prison love him. They know he's not a racist. So this is Obama. This started under the Obama administration. I think Contreras was scared because he was appointed by Obama. He still owes his allegiance to Obama for getting him his federal judgeship. This is the world we live in today, is the judiciary is so compromised, and you just got to keep punching. And I'm not done enforcing the rule of law and getting an ethics investigation. I'm not done with regard to what's going on in Las Vegas and trying to help the Bundys get acquitted. They've been in prison for 2 years. The judge there, Navarro, just recently let out the sons to a halfway house, in effect. They still have to wear ankle bracelets. They're still monitored But she had to do that because she didn't want to be part of a sinking ship. She has participated with the prosecution in persecuting the Bundys, keeping them in prison without cause, not letting them post bail. Ladies and gentlemen, this is why this case is so important, because in this country, we fought a revolution over this kind of conduct with King George III busting into our home, stealing our property, raping and pillaging, really denigrating our legal system. We rose up. We risked our lives. People died. Many people died to form a free nation. So I ask you to support what we're doing with Cliven Bundy, because he's standing in the breach for you. Cliven refused to come out of jail even when the judge said you can go out of jail and go to a halfway house. He said, I'm not coming out till I'm totally free. I'm not coming out till all the defendants have been released. I'm here on principle. And that's why you need to stand on principle with him. So please go to Cliven Bundy Defense Fund. Contribute generously to that. ClivenBundyDefenseFund.org. ClivenBundyDefenseFund.org. That's CLIVEN, Bundy, DefenseFund.org, because this is the case of the century. Everything that is good about this country and everything that's bad about this country is in this lawsuit. And watch what happens in the next week or so, because I'll be in Las Vegas. We're going to be fighting for not just Bundy, but his cause. And you cannot have the federal government come onto your property and beat the crap out of you to drive you off the land so it can be sold to Chinese environmental interests. It's that simple. And this is the world we live in today. So let's pray this holiday season. Let's pray for our Savior, Jesus Christ, to him to come back and to help us. But in the meantime, we got to help ourselves. And I know he has our hand on our shoulders, and I know that he's with us. So thank you very much for supporting Cliven Bundy. We're going to talk about other things when we come back from the break that are related to the tyranny in this country. Not just the tyranny at Bunkerville, but the tyranny in Washington, D.C. that's terrorizing this country. Democrats, establishment Republicans, others who don't respect the rule of law. I'll be right back.
Dangerous.
You don't hear, use the court and the law.
Lethal.
This is bad.
Special prosecutor.
Very bad.
Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
Now let's discuss Robert Mueller. I did a mock satirical Time magazine Corrupt Prosecutors of the Year. You can find it at freedomwatchusa.org. It has Robert Mueller standing over the other FBI director that came after him, James Comey, and it speaks for itself. This is what we've had running the FBI. We know the problems at the FBI now. It's become a corrupt organization. Shouldn't be shut down, but they should be cleaning out the officials at the top of that agency. And we know from this FBI agent, Robert Struck, that he was working with Comey and others, not just to fix the Hillary Clinton email investigation and to let her off the hook, but he wanted an insurance policy in case Trump won to destroy the Trump presidency. We know that Fusion GPS gave rise to a false dossier, claiming that Trump was doing illegal things in Moscow. It was paid for by Hillary Clinton and the Democratic National Committee. It was used as an excuse to wiretap the Trump Tower. It was used as an excuse to ultimately have Robert Mueller appointed special counsel, among other factors. But we have on our website right now a petition. I want you all to go to it and sign it for me to continue legal efforts to have Robert Mueller removed as special counsel. Let's put somebody in who's honest. Let's put somebody in who is going to not go astray but deal with the issue of Russian collusion, of which there is no evidence so far. This investigation should be shut down. But there are two reasons why you need to sign that petition and support our efforts financially. Go to freedomwatchusa.org. Number one, we have an attorney general who's put his head in the sand. He's the one who should resign. He's the one who needs to step aside. I have an article that's coming out on WorldNet Daily, WND.com. You can find it on our website at freedomwatchusa.org, that he's simply worthless, Sessions, notwithstanding, that he didn't do anything with regard to the Bundys and the prosecutorial abuse that he's now sitting over by Obama deep state prosecutors, he's the one that had Mueller appointed because he recused himself. And his number two, Rod Rosenstein, who's a Democrat, also Obama deep state, appointed Mueller. Well, Sessions is under investigation himself by Mueller for allegedly Russian collusion. And that's why he doesn't want to push too hard on Mueller, because he's worried that he could wind up getting indicted or at least impeached. And that's a problem in and of itself. And on top of that, we have the lawyers of the president who are inert. They're all Washington swamp creatures that just take punches. They've been out there saying this investigation by Mueller is going to end by the end of the year. But now we know, because Mueller's leaked something else yet again, that it's going to go on through 2018. And what's the reason for that? It's to damage Trump so the Republicans lose control of Congress in the fall elections in 2018. By smearing him, they're going to smear the Republican Party. Not that the Republican Party is the best thing since sliced bread, frankly, except for this tax victory this week. And they've done nothing. I mean, they've been a disgrace. But at least they've got that. But can you imagine having Chuck Schumer as the Senate Majority Leader and Nancy Pelosi back as Speaker of the House? Can you imagine anything more frightening? It would be like the Addams Family. It'd be monsters on the loose. So this is the issue that we face, and that's why I want you to go to freedomwatchusa.org. Sign that petition. Give us your email address so you can get our updates. Give us your address so I can send you requests for support. You can support us on that website by going to PayPal and making a contribution, because I have a lawsuit to remove Mueller. I'm going to talk more about that in the next segment. I'm going to talk about other things that we have planned on the horizon. Because, see, this is where Freedom Watch differs from my former group, Judicial Watch. They're very good at getting some documents. I taught them how to do that. But as I've said, when you get cards, when you get documents to play with, you got to put money on the table. You've got to do something to bring about justice, because we don't have an attorney general that's bringing cases and trying to bring about justice with regard to all of this Clinton, Obama, and other corruption. You need a Freedom Watch that's bringing these real hard-hitting cases. And yes, sometimes we get judges that don't agree with us because they're leftist hacks, but we got to keep trying. And I've said that it's kind of like a MIRV missile. If just one gets through, that we can destroy the left. We can destroy this evil in this country legally without resorting to violent revolution, which we're trying to head off, which may be ultimately be inevitable. I don't advocate it. But if we can't use the courts to clean things up, that's where we're headed. So go to freedomwatchusa.org, support our cause, sign our petition. Please provide your contact information so you can become part of Freedom Watch. We need you. We need you badly. I'll be right back.
And now, 4 words that make corrupt politicians make wee-wee in their little pants.
Transparency and the rule of law will be the touchstones of this presidency.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
Be the one who makes our country great again. Go to freedomwatchusa.org and donate.
Let's now talk about the case that I brought against Robert Mueller. It's in front of a judge, Amy Berman Jackson, an Obama appointee. She's the judge who dismissed the case I brought. It's up on appeal. We're confident it's going to be coming back. We're asking the appellate court to have it come back, to reverse her decision, and to have another judge appointed. She's highly partisan. She's a political hack. She's an appointee of President Obama. I did a little search of Federal Election Commission records just this week. She gave a lot of money to Obama, obviously to grease her becoming nominated for a federal judgeship. In a case that I brought for the families of the victims at Benghazi, Pat Smith, you saw her at the Republican convention. Her son, Sean Smith, died with Ambassador Christopher Stevens. And Charles Wood, his son, Ty Woods, also died. They were both working for the government undercover in Benghazi. They were killed because Hillary Clinton had used her unsecure private email server. It gave up the coordinates of the ambassador, thereby giving up the coordinates of Ty Woods and Sean Smith, resulted in their murders. we sued Hillary Clinton for wrongful death. Large damages. We want to hold her accountable for killing people. Certainly, it wouldn't be the first time people believe that she's killed people. 80 people died during the Clinton administration. Frankly, I believe she had some of them hit. She's a cruel witch. She knows no respect for the rule of law, and she's not above having people killed. And the reality is this time she did it negligently because this gave rise to the wrongful death of our client's sons. In addition to that, she defamed them because she told them that the death was simply a result of Muslims that were walking in the woods. This was her off-the-cuff remark about our dead sons and Gold Star families that were grieving. And she lied. And when our clients came out and said this is what she told them, when she knew, we found out that it was a terrorist attack. She did that to protect her run for the presidency, and she therefore defamed our clients. So we've sued her for defamation. This case will stick. But Amy Berman Jackson dismissed this case on the eve of Memorial Day. Can you imagine anything so disrespectful and so evil to stick it up the derriere of her Gold Star parents? That's what she was doing. Why would you dismiss a case, even if there were valid grounds, and there weren't? It was totally made up, bogus grounds, completely contrived. She probably thought she'd probably be appointed to a higher bench by Hillary Clinton if she won. Why would you do that on the eve of Memorial Day when the Gold Star parents, Pat Smith and Charles Woods, were grieving for their sons? This woman went to Harvard undergraduate school. She went to Harvard Law School. She may be an ultra-leftist, but she's also intelligent. She knew what she was doing. And there's other instances of her bias and prejudice. I won't get into all of them, but in the Manafort prosecution, she sits over that. She wouldn't accept $11 million bond to let Manafort out during Thanksgiving, kept him under house arrest, put a gag order on him that he can't talk about the case and defend himself after he's being smashed on MSNBC and CNN and having his reputation destroyed before he's even tried. This woman is a total hack. And the case that I brought to remove Mueller was assigned to her, so I have a motion to disqualify, which she denied, of course, and I'm taking it up to the Ninth Circuit. We need to have you support that. We need the financial resources to fight that. These kinds of judges, she's the poster child of the partisanship, these leftist hacks that sit on the bench. Please go to freedomwatchusa.org. Sign our petition to remove Mueller. I have other ways to do it as well, legally. But it's also not just about Mueller. It's about this very corrupt judge. It's about someone who puts her political views and predilections ahead of her principles. And whether or not she allows us to get an order to force the Justice Department to investigate Mueller and to remove him. And that is a questionable legal question that needs to be resolved as to whether we can do that, because we've sued Mueller in other capacities as well. So we have a full court press here. But just her attitude in the Benghazi case, she said we couldn't even criticize Hillary Clinton in legal briefs. She was protecting Hillary Clinton. This is her soul sister. She undoubtedly knows Hillary Clinton. They probably rubbed shoulders in the boudoirs of Georgetown here in Washington. We have to fight this corruption, not just among these politicians, but also on the judiciary. So go to freedomwatchusa.org, sign our petition, support our cause. I know that I'm pumping this a lot on our show, but I need to reach you because we need the resources to be what Jeff Sessions is not. We need to be your private Justice Department. And that's why it's so important that we have you as our supporters. We also have lawsuits against Antifa, that ultra-leftist group that has so much vandalized and terrorized our country, supported by George Soros, that Nazi sympathizer collaborator, that self-hating Jew that actually collaborated with the Nazis to take property away from Jews in World War II as they were going to their death in gas chambers and ovens. An absolute disgrace. You know, I'm a Jewish Christian. I'm very proud of being Jewish, but I also believe in Jesus, and I'm both. And George Soros is somebody who doesn't believe in anything. He's an atheist, and he's a disgrace to the Jewish people. Absolute disgrace. The Jewish left is a disgrace to the Jewish people, regrettably. It's a real embarrassment for Jews everywhere throughout this world that they continue to support Palestinians. This week, the ADL came out in favor of removing our embassy from Jerusalem after President Trump said he's moving it. Can you imagine the Jewish left not wanting the embassy of the United States in Jerusalem. I mean, it's a disgrace. The Jewish left is the biggest enemy of the Jewish people, and they're an enemy of Christians too. And I'm not trying to be anti-Semitic. I'm not. I'm Jewish myself. But it's an absolute outrage that these people, they're the kind of people that would have gotten on boxcars in World War II thinking they were going to summer camp at Auschwitz. So let us support our Judeo-Christian roots. Let us be proud of it. Let us be proud of both religions, which are basically, in my view, in effect, the same religion. This Christmas and Hanukkah and holiday season, let us bring this country back to morality, to ethics, and the rule of law. As John Adams said, without ethics, morality, and religion, we will not have a lasting liberty, and we need to further that lasting liberty. So let's move on. We're going to talk about another American who is in jeopardy in just a few seconds here, because you know that Judge Roy Moore so-called lost this election last week. And frankly, I think the election was rigged. And we have a statistician that we're going to bring on. His name is Robert Sylvetz, who believes the same thing, that it's not likely that this was an honest election. Now, of course, they're still counting provisional ballots, and they're counting ballots of the military, and it may narrow the choice. But, you know, here's the difference between Larry Klaim and yours truly and a lot of Republicans, is that we don't run away from friends. We support friends. And I know that Judge Moore is a good man. 40 years ago, he's alleged to have done certain things. Frankly, I don't believe the women that came forward, but even if he did them, in Alabama at the time, the age of consent was 16 years old. And while that may not be a good thing, the fact is he didn't violate the law. And the other thing is that people, you know, over time can repent. I mean, if we're Christians, then we believe in forgiveness. People make mistakes. So we're in a precarious situation. We now have the potential for Doug Jones in Alabama, and I want you to support the recount to see that that the right person won the election. I have on the phone right now Robert Sylvetz. He's a friend of mine. He's someone who knows a lot about statistics. He's a fine gentleman, and I want him to give his thoughts on whether or not the election in Alabama was rigged or not in favor of Doug Jones. Robert?
Hi there, Larry. Glad to be with you today.
Yes, give us your thoughts on why you think that election was rigged, based on your expertise.
Okay. As with all these things, it's what I know versus what I can prove. And the simple truth is, from a statistical perspective, we are again confronted with a pattern that has become very prevalent in the United States since, say, the 1980s, which is of the ultra-close election, okay? And by that I mean an election that is decided by roughly between 1% and 1.5%, sometimes 2% of the total vote. This shouldn't happen as frequently as it does in our electoral system. Once you get into hundreds of thousands of voters, okay, and the natural patterns and differentials between the two parties, okay, and we're going to restrict ourselves to those examples where we don't have an independent in the situation. The simple truth is you should have nice, clean margins, okay, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8%, running all the way up, in fact, up to potentially 20%. If you look at the complete distribution of all elections that involve more than a few 100,000 individuals, so that the theorems of statistics have some meaning to them because of the large numbers, you should see essentially what amounts to a reasonably flat distribution with less than a certain number of really, really tight, close races, okay? And instead you don't find that, okay? You find a flat line, which runs roughly at around 300 to 400 elections for each 0.5% margin of victory, Okay, so if we restrict ourselves just to the very, very narrow races where, there's that 1.5% differential, something interesting pops out. Okay, the Republican loses much more than the Democrat does on a statistical basis. There is a very, very clear margin, somewhere on the order of 30 or 40%, where suddenly in the ultra close race, the Democrat prevails. Okay, and so this is a differential, okay? So, it could be very well that, in the ultra-close races, the Republicans are stealing 40, but the Democrats are somehow stealing 70, and so you get this plus 30 percentage type effect going on. And this happens all the time. And then you have to ask all the questions that go around this, okay? Because every 2 years we have midterms, every 4 years we have a presidential, and then we have other very significant type special elections all over the place. And it's particularly strange in a red state like Alabama that all of a sudden 92% of the Democrats vote, but only 50% of the GOP vote. When have we ever seen that kind of distribution?
No, you're absolutely right, Robert. I think what's really important here is that we get a recount. And I know that Chief Justice Moore, who actually was the one justice on the Alabama Supreme Court that asked for Obama to submit a birth certificate, or anybody else for that matter who registered to run for the presidency, that he found that to be proper under the Alabama Constitution. This is a man who believes in letting the truth speak for itself. So we do need a recount here. We need to have an honest recount. I don't trust what went on down there, particularly since the Republican establishment was stabbing Chief Justice Moore in the back. People were saying, the Republicans were in charge of the election. Well, the Republicans were also trying to defeat Moore because they were running away from these allegations of sexual abuse. In today's world, we have a Salem witch trial mentality where any allegation made by a woman causes the man to be burned at the stake. Some of these men are guilty, obviously Harvey Weinstein, Matt Lauer, others, but a lot of them are innocent, and their careers are being destroyed, as we speak. So this is why we need a recount, and I thank you very much for your analysis here, this, statistical analysis, because the American people need to understand that our elections are not honest. It's not the Russians that are hacking and destroying our elections. They occur through a lot of state and local corruption. So thanks, Robert, and I wish you a happy holiday period, and thank you for your thoughts. We'll be right back. We're going to talk about UFOs a little bit here, unidentified flying objects. I think we have a lot of that in Washington, D.C.
Before he was a trial lawyer, he sliced him and diced him.
People used to ask me, Larry, what caused you to start Judicial Watch and now Freedom Watch, given the powerful forces in this country that put you at risk?
In a meat packing plant.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
A very special prosecutor, Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
Yes, we do have a lot of unidentified flying objects in Washington, D.C. It's basically the crap that's thrown around on cable news by both the Democrats and the Republicans. We go through these dog and pony shows all the time. As one example, we've got people pontificating last week on a House Judiciary Committee hearing. They're interviewing various people from the FBI, McCabe, who was greased by Terry McAuliffe, a friend of the Clintons, to take a dive on the Clinton investigation. He was the deputy FBI director. We've got Robert Strzok. We've got others out there, Comey, etc. And these Republicans come on, they pontificate, but nothing ever happens. I think the biggest fraud is Trey Gowdy, frankly, because he's got a great delivery, but he's somebody who took a dive on Benghazi. He exonerated Hillary Clinton. He's always prevaricating. He never showed up for a hearing that we had for Extortion 17, 30 special ops that went down that were unexplained in the Tangi Valley 3 months after bin Laden was killed. Didn't even show up, and he was on the committee. You know, so this is why you need Freedom Watch, because, you see, we show up. We actually do the job, and we're not afraid. I don't want to be elected to anything. I don't want to be a member of a club that would have me as a member, in the words of Groucho Marx. You said that when I ran for the U.S. Senate. You know, I shouldn't have run because I'm much better on the outside, but I got to see what it was like a little bit on the inside. I said to the people in Florida where I was running, I said, I don't want to be a member of a club that would have me as a member. I want to take a club to the Senate, not be a part of the Senate club. And that's what we need today, because you can see right down the line, whether it's Attorney General Jeff Sessions, whether it's the president's lawyers who have been inert and are just taking punches, whether it's Robert Mueller, who's so corrupt and so manipulative to try to destroy not just the Trump presidency, but the entire Republican Congress and get them thrown out. Now, not that they're great shakes, but I'll tell you something, you get the Democrats in there, and we're going to see some real bad stuff. And I'm not advocating to vote for anybody. I'm just telling you the reality here. Here's the situation. Without a Freedom Watch, you're left completely defensive and defenseless. I need to hire more lawyers. I need to hire more staff. I need to ramp up. We're the only group that really brings hard-hitting cases. Getting documents, like my former colleagues do, is not enough. It's great. You can get on Fox News. You can pound your chest. You can say, like Tom Fitton did, let's shut down the FBI, and it sounds real good. But you know what? What are you going to do about it other than getting documents? You got to file cases. You got to try to break through. You've got to educate the American people intelligently. And that's what we do here on Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Because Freedom Watch is what Judicial Watch used to be. We are here to be your private Justice Department. Now, we're very small. We need to get bigger. So please, this holiday season, go to freedomwatchusa.org. Contribute to our cause. Sign up for our newsletter. Sign up for our press releases. Donate so we can ramp up, because we don't have a Justice Department. And, of course, you know, you need to give us some feedback, too. We want to hear from you to get your ideas on what needs to be done, because we are your private Justice Department. We are your true Justice Department, and we need your help. I want to tell you something about the real UFOs. We're going to be looking into that, too. You know, we've had reports this week of Navy fighter pilots spotting these unidentified flying objects that seem to have no gravity, that they work anti-gravity. Well, you know what? I believe there's something there. I'll give you a little story. I was walking out of the prison in Pahrump, Nevada, where Clive Bundy is one day, and I was walking with a guard. And I said to him, boy, this place is the modern-day Alcatraz. If anyone tries to escape, I was just joking, they'll be bitten by rattlesnakes. And he said to me, you know, I'm not worried about the rattlers. I'm worried about the UFOs I see every night. This is Area 51, where we tested nuclear weapons. This is where we have secret military facilities. We very well might have an alternative space program. We may have, based upon what happened at Roswell years ago, the technology that we have anti-gravity devices. This may not even be people from other worlds. It may be our own government that has this, or other governments that have this capability. We need to find out, because this could revolutionize the world. This energy could change the way everything happens. It may make oil obsolete. So this is something we're going to be looking into. It's not crazy anymore. If Harry Reid did anything right, he commissioned a study on it. So there's going to be more about that from Freedom Watch. But go to freedomwatchusa.org, sign up, contribute to our cause, and I wish you all a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and New Year.